Emiko's perspective. "This is a bad idea," opines the tall, red-headed man dressed in civvies, with an outdoorsy look, rather than his uniform, and with 2 stick bundles slung across his back, as the 6 of us make our way from the swift claw, across the cyan-coloured grass field that reeks of rotten meat, to the wooden walls ringing with sounds of alarm bells and shouting men, our empty hands raised to the sky. "Your objection was noted and overruled, Victor," I chuckle. "Right now, you are not here in your capacity as Chief Security Officer. You are here representing Taqual and the interests of the Bright Plume, and as a stick delivery man." He grumbles. I turn to Yasmin and ask, "How confident are you with their language?" Excitedly, she smiles. "Ooh, understanding them should be no problem, though I'm slightly less confident about making myself understood. That recording of the boy was the kind of thing that could go right in a textbook. I might actually ask him if he's happy for me to put it in the textbook I plan to eventually write. Perfect distillation of history, culture, and quasi-religious beliefs, presented in the language of the culture. Definitely helps to already be fluent in all the component languages, but there were some interesting little tricks and combinations that tripped me up somewhat. Jay and I had a fantastic time analyzing it together last night." "Okay, good. You did sleep, right?" I ask. She laughs. "Jay made me go to bed. I got some sleep." "I'll take it," I answer. Downside of seeking out the best in the galaxy, you get all their quirks and foibles too. We stop, 30 meters or so from the gate, our hands still held above our heads. The band of men, 24 or so strong, gathered atop the gate, some holding bows, others manning ballistae, look very perturbed. Of course they would be. You're living in a rural agrarian society and someone tears out of the sky in a spaceship. We can just think of this as a trial run for our final destination. These people will at least recognize us, more or less, as being the same species as them. They at least know that they aren't alone in the universe, even if they don't quite know how much company they have just yet. The men look to each other, no one seeming to want to be the first to speak. I decide to take the initiative. "Good people of Marburg, my name is Emiko's Smiles Miyazaki. I stand here representing the United Terran Coalition. We ask forgiveness for the distress we unintentionally caused your community yesterday evening, and request entrance to your town, that we may parley with your leaders to negotiate the re-establishment of contact between this settlement and the wider UTC." As I shout, Yasmin shouts just a little louder than me, and on just a little bit of a delay, translating my words into her approximation of their language. I only recognize a few words bar Malborg and my own name. There is a pause before one of the bow wielders takes it upon himself to speak, shouting back words I have no hope of understanding myself. He's asking if this is the Ratunek. I believe that Ratunek is an appropriate term in your language for what I hope to be achieved or at least commenced today, I answer. Here another man speaks. He's asking if it's true that we killed a Bane. I assume he's talking about the dead thing in the background of the video, translates Yasmin. My associate here, Victor Cuddles Taylor, was forced to kill a large predatory animal in self-defense when he and his team conducted their preliminary landing yesterday. Yes. This act was necessary to the preservation of life, and no disrespect of your culture or local ecosystem was intended, I say. Yasmin mirroring my gesture to Victor. I sort of hedge my bets, apologizing, in case they consider the animals religiously significant or necessary to the ecosystem's health. I'd guess not if they call them Banes, but you can't be too careful. The second man speaks again. He's asking to see the Sun Sword, translates Yasmin. I hesitate. I relented in allowing Victor to bring his plasma weapon, swayed by the events of yesterday, but my associate has that weapon with him. However, the effect can be a little overwhelming. I just want to assure you that there is no ill intent and request restraint on your parts if that weapon is to be demonstrated. I.e., don't fucking shoot us because you got scared of the weapon that you asked to see. There's a brief discussion among the guards before the first one answers. He says you will not be fired upon and requests again to see the weapon, relays Yasmin. Bracing myself for some very disconcerted faces, I say, "All right, Victor. Go ahead." The large man draws his sword from his hip, and there's a palpable moment of disappointment as, at first, it just looks like a long, admittedly elegant-looking sword made of shiny metal. Clearly a few of them have thoughts along the lines of, "That's what all the hype was about?" Then, Victor ignites it. The disappointment turns to terror as the metal glows through to white and roars from the fusion energy being unnaturally forced into it. "Alright, I think they get the picture, Victor," I say mournfully, and relieved that they were good to their word of not being terrified enough to shoot us. Victor sheathes his sword, followed by a long pause before a third man shouts something. He's asking if it's true that we had a 2.2 meter tall, 4-armed woman with blue skin and, I guess the best approximation would be vampire fangs? Conveys Yasmin. There was such a woman on yesterday's expedition, though I must assure you, there was nothing sinister about her. However, she may have appeared to be to the boy who had the misfortune to encounter us. Her kind's existence is one of the many things we hope to discuss with your leaders. There is much muttering at that. Yasmin translates as best as she can. That one's saying they shouldn't let us in because we might be demons. That one's saying if we wanted in, we could have flown the ship over the walls or cut through them with the plasma sword. That one's musing about whether demons might need to be invited in. He's pointing out that there are only 6 of us. What harm could we really do, even if we are demons? Those two are discussing whether they should let us in or wait for the guard captain, who's out on an expedition for the next few hours, at least. Tired of the indecision, I decide to employ a little reverse psychology. If there is no one currently present who has the authority to open these doors for us, we can return at a later time. We do not wish to inconvenience you. The attitude immediately shifts at the indirect slight. The first one to speak speaks again. He requests the surrender of the Sun Sword and an agreement to be under guard while inside the walls as condition for entry, communicates Yasmin. I look to Victor and ask, is that amenable? Frowning, he addresses the men on the walls, Yasmin seamlessly translating for him. I want assurance that this sword will be returned to me as is when I leave. Also, since it's extremely dangerous to use and needs extensive certification to be licensed in, I'll be locking it into its scabbard. You won't be able to use it, but please do not try to. If those terms are acceptable, I'll give you my sword. Several of the men look disappointed, clearly having been excited to play with the, as stated, extremely dangerous weapon. The self-designated leader speaks again. He agrees, and says to open the gates. Victor removes his sword from his belt and locks it into the scabbard, as he said he would. The gates swing open and several of the men come out to meet us. They're also short, observes Victor. Don't people born on lower grav worlds normally end up gaining a few centimeters from it? Yes, but people born in pre-industrial rural agrarian societies tend not to have the proper nutrition and healthcare that we take for granted, I point out, looking at the troop of men, only 1 or 2 of which are taller than I am. Fair point, says Victor, handing over his sword to a man who looks at what he now holds with an expression best described as awe. I hold out my hand to the in-situ acting commander and ask, we actually had somewhere we wanted to stop in on the way to your leaders. Perhaps you could help us find it? Susanna's perspective. I drop the Jajona's meat into the cauldron. I'll take it to Babsia Cornelia's place for Stefania when it's done. My mind wars with itself as I watch the soup cook. I don't want to believe what the Bazawi told me yesterday. I can't. It's not fair. She's 5 years old. It wasn't fair when Lucas was taken from me, but at least he lived. He laughed, he sang, drank beer, had friends, had children, and a wife who loved him. Steph is never going to get any of that. Tears sting my eyes, and I feel the crushing weight of my husband's absence. Lucas, where are you? I need you. I can't do this without you. I whimper to myself. I stir the pot, more for something to do than because it actually needs stirring. Then my mind wanders to Powell's demony. My boy has always been honest, often to a fault, coming home with black eyes as the trophies of his honesty. But what he told me and the Bazawi yesterday, it can't be real, can it? I'd almost prefer my boy to turn out to have been a sinister liar or mad than what he said actually being true. Forearm demony taller than the ceiling? A woman in armor that looks so heavy that a sturdy table will collapse under his weight? The 2-meter-plus man might have been put in his head by what I said to him earlier that day, but there's no denying that he came home without the wood he'd gone to gather and with scratches all over his body. At this point, I hear a knock at the door. "Coming," I say, bringing my hand to my eyes to clear them of moisture. I walk to the door and open it, then immediately freeze. In the doorway stands a woman. The darkness of the skin of her hands and stunning face would suggest her to be a field worker, though from a much sunnier place than Malbork. In contrast, though, it's utterly blemishless and smooth, like she's lived a life of pampered luxury. She wears the single finest dress I've ever seen, made of beautiful grassy cyan and golden cloth. Her hair is covered with a choster that matches her dress, and she stands about 15 centimeters taller than me. Her husband, however, makes her look positively mundane. The man is a literal, honest-to-bogoey giant. Easily more than 2 meters tall, ghostly pale skin, hair like fire, and eyes the green of new growth leaf buds on earth crops. Though his arms, legs, and chest are covered by his outlandish clothes, the power of his formidable physique is clearly evident. This man is the perfect match of the demon that Powell described yesterday. "Greetings," smiles the blue-clothed woman, her accent a little strange. "You are Mother's Powell?" Yes, I'm Powell's mother," I say, disorientated. "Marvelous. My name is Yasmin Yellowtongue Sultani. This name Victor Hugging Taylor. We are here with the Rattleneck," she says, as casually as a neighbor announcing that they're on the planning committee for the upcoming festival. My stomach turns and my knees go weak. This is not good for the baby. I need to sit. I think I might faint," I say, woozily swaying forward. I reach the point of no return, but the man wordlessly catches my shoulders and, bending to fit beneath my doorframe, comes in and steers me to a seat at the table with irresistibly strong arms. "Sorry for coming uninvited," speaks the giant, once he sat me down, stooping so that his head doesn't bang on the ceiling. "My compatriot's sorries for entering your house with no invitation," smiles the beautiful woman. "It's fine," I huff, recovering. "May we sit?" she asks, pointing to a chair. I gesture for them to go ahead. The woman sits, gracefully. The giant tests the chair with his hand, seeming suspicious that it won't take his weight, before deciding to trust it. As he sits, I notice for the first time what he was carrying on his back. 2 bundles of orangey yellow sticks tied with ropes I recognize. "So, Mrs. prompts the woman. "Susanna," I provide, still a little light-headed. "Mrs. Susanna," she smiles, We come here to sorry for scaring your Powell yesterday. He ran without sticks, so we bring them for you for him.
Really sorry. It was my fault. Hope I didn't traumatize him,
says the green-eyed behemoth, placing the bundles on the floor. Victor is sorry, saying it was because of him. He does not want to have frightened Powell. It's fine. Thank you for, bringing the sticks, I say stupidly.
Powell okay?
He says, using two words I know. Yes, he's fine. The Bzawi listened to him, convinced him that you, might not actually be demony. Told him what Neanderthals were, what guns were. I say, a little perturbed by the woman speaking over me in an alien language, presumably for the giant's benefit. Mammo, what's the best way to... comes the voice of my eldest child as he lets himself in the back door. That's as far as he gets, because at that point, he sees who I'm sharing a table with. Powell, I smile, forcing myself to pretend that everything is normal, and not that my entire reality is shattering around me. Mr. Victor and Mrs. Yasmin just came to drop off the sticks you forgot yesterday. Isn't that nice of them? Powell stands rooted to the spot for a moment, then charges forward, lunging to draw one of the sticks from the bundles that the pair delivered. Powell, don't! I beg, horrified at what this man could do if angered. He doesn't hear me because he's screaming, Don't hurt her! Don't you fucking dare hurt her! He swings the stick at the man who must weigh 4 times what he does. The man's hand catches the stick almost effortlessly. He doesn't look angry, more like charmed.
You're brave, kid,
speaks the smiling giant to my son, who stands, frozen. You have courage, child, translates the dark-skinned woman.
But you're also a bit stupid.
But you are also somewhat foolish.
My chief would say, pick your battles.
My teacher would advise, choose your fights.
Know where you can win.
Be aware of when victory is not possible.
Know when fighting ain't necessary.
Be aware when there is no need to fight.
I ain't your enemy, kid.
We are not adversaries, child.
Can we be friends?
Might we be allies? At that, the giant man extends his right hand to Powell in a very clear gesture of peace. Powell just looks at him for a moment, then runs from the house.
Gosh, sure if I ain't fucking knight in shining armor, there,
chuckles the giant. Your son shall grow to be a hero in times to come, translates his wife. He is as headstrong as his father was, but he has his father's kind heart too, I say, getting used to the woman speaking while I speak to let her husband understand me. The giant smiles but says nothing. I begin, then waver. Go ask Mrs. Susanna, smiles the gorgeous woman. Are you really here for the Ratunek? Are you really from the UTC? We are, grins the woman, without translating for the man. Tell me, in the UTC, is there a way to cure pneumonia?